My phone was dead for 4 days. That's all it was. A lightning strike hit the signal tower 2 barangays over, and just like that, silence. But to my 3 children scattered in 3 different countries, 4 days of silence from their 68-year-old mother meant only one thing. By the time my phone turned back on, they had already bought the tickets, all 3 of them, from Toronto, from London, from Dubai, landing in Tacloban within a day of each other, not telling me, not asking me, just coming. They walked the last stretch to my house on foot because the road was flooded again. Ready, they told me later, to see the worst. Ready to find their mother broken down, alone, needing to be carried out of that province for good. What they found instead made all 3 of them stop walking. Just stand there, in the mud, staring at me like they didn't recognize the woman standing in front of them. I wasn't the one who needed saving. I didn't know any of this was happening. I was only told about it afterward, piece by piece, sitting right here on this stool. Arvin, my eldest, works night shifts in a hospital in Toronto. He noticed first. He messaged his sister, "Have you talked to Nanay?" Divine hadn't. She was just finishing a 12-hour shift in London. Junjun, my youngest, in Dubai, hadn't either. By the second day, I'm told, the group chat they usually filled with recipes and photos of my apo turned into something heavier. Maybe her phone broke. Maybe there's no signal again. Or maybe none of them finished that sentence to each other. They didn't have to. I know my children. I know what they carry. For years, all 3 of them have carried a guilt I never asked them to carry. The guilt of building lives on 3 different continents while their mother stayed behind. The guilt of birthday, calls that dropped in the middle of blowing out a candle, of Christmases spent apologizing through a phone screen. I always told them, "Ayos lang ako dito, wag kayo mag-alala. I'm fine here, don't worry," and I said it quickly, easily, every single time, maybe too quickly. I don't think they ever fully believed me. They told themselves I was managing, that the money they sent every month was enough, that the store kept me busy, that I was fine. 4 days without my voice broke that story wide open for them. By the 3rd day, Arvin had already requested emergency leave from his hospital. Divine had rebooked her flight through Manila instead of straight to London. And Junjun, my youngest, the one who usually needs the most convincing to do anything sudden, was the first one to actually board a plane. They weren't flying home to visit me. They were flying home to rescue me. They met each other at the airport like strangers who happened to share the same childhood. Divine hadn't seen Junjun in 3 years. Arvin hadn't seen either of them in almost 5. But there was no small talk between them, they said. Just one question asked over and over during that whole van ride. "Do you think Nanay's okay?" The road had gotten worse since any of them last came home. A typhoon 2 years ago washed out half the concrete, and what's left is packed dirt the rain keeps trying to take back. Their driver stopped a kilometre out. The road ahead was underwater from the morning tide. So they walked, in shoes not made for mud, carrying bags packed with vitamins, with medicine, with printouts of visa sponsorship papers from Canada and the UK. Because if their mother needed saving, they were going to save her properly, permanently, on paper and everything. Junjun said what none of them wanted to say out loud. What if something already happened to her? Nobody answered him, he told me later. They just walked faster. And then, through the coconut trees, they heard something none of them expected to hear. Laughter, a lot of it. And underneath it, my voice, they said, unmistakable, raised not in distress, but right in the middle of a joke. There I was, Not thin, not frail, not sitting alone in the dark waiting for someone, anyone, to remember me. I was standing in the middle of 11 children, 12 if you count the little one who always shows up late, teaching multiplication on a blackboard I prop up against the coconut tree every afternoon. These are children from families who have nowhere else to send them for tutoring, not with our public school as crowded as it is now. The 4 days of silence had a simple explanation. Once I could finally tell them. A lightning strike on the signal tower. Nothing more. Not decline. Not danger. Just bad timing and worse infrastructure. But that wasn't what stopped my children in their tracks. It was everything else around me. This sari store, the same one their papa built with his own hands more than 30 years ago, now has a small covered extension where I sell not just canned goods and instant coffee, but fresh vegetables from the garden I planted myself behind the house, a solar panel bought with money I saved on my own, little by little, keeps a small refrigerator running so I can sell the only cold drinks for 2 barangays in either direction. And the children, sitting on repurposed rice sacks, old plastic chairs, doing their homework under a tarp I strung up myself after the last typhoon took our barangay's only community center. I painted a sign and nailed it to a post myself. Nanay Presentacion's tutoring corner, libre, basta magsipag. Free, as long as you work hard. Arvin was the one who finally spoke, not to me, to his siblings, standing right there in the mud. She built all this, and we thought she was falling apart. I heard him say it, I pretended not to. The visa papers stayed in the bag that whole night. Nobody brought them out, nobody needed to, because the conversation we had wasn't the one they came here to have. I told them how the tutoring corner started. Just my neighbour's grandson 2 years ago, struggling to read. Then word spread. I told them how I used part of every remittance they sent, not to sit and wait for the next one, but to buy second-hand books, a blackboard, and eventually that solar panel, because the children needed light to study once the sun went down, and their own homes had none to spare. I told them about our barangay captain who calls me Nanay Presentacion, now out of real respect, not just politeness. About the mothers who leave their children with me not because they have no other choice, but because they trust no one else more. Naisip ko, I told my children, I thought, kung ako lang mag-isa dito, mawawala rin ako. Kaya ginawa ko itong bahay ninyo para sa lahat. I thought, if I stayed here alone, I would disappear too. So I turned this house, your house, into something for everyone. Then I looked at all 3 of them, mud still on their shoes, exhaustion still on their faces, and I told them the thing I most needed them to understand. Hindi ako iniwan dito. Pinili kong manatili. May malaking pagkakaiba yon. I wasn't left behind here. I chose to stay. That is a very big difference. Junjun cried first, then Divine. Arvin, the one who has seen every kind of emotional collapse a person can have, working in that I see you, put his head down too and let it happen. Not because they were sad, because for years they had been sending money home to a story they built in their own heads, a mother waiting, alone, diminished, needing to be rescued. And the whole time I had been building something, quietly, without asking for credit, without waiting for permission. They didn't bring me home, they stayed instead, 3 more days than any of them had planned. Arvin fixed the tutoring corner's roof properly, with real materials this time. Divine, who works in elder care in London, spent an entire afternoon teaching the other elderly women in our barangay how to check each other's blood pressure with a second-hand monitor she'd brought all the way from England. Junjun, who has never in his life been handy with anything, got recruited by a 9-year-old to help build a proper bookshelf, and somehow didn't complain once. Before they flew back, we didn't talk about visas again. We talked about a bigger solar setup instead, a real covered classroom before the next typhoon season. A small fund split 3 ways between 3 salaries in 3 different currencies, not to bring their mother out of the Philippines, but to help her build more of exactly what she had already built on her own. My children flew 10,000 kilometers to bring their mother home. They left, having learned that I already was home, that home this whole time had been a place I built for other people's children, using the very money my own children sent, so that I would never have to be alone. Sometimes the people you think you're rescuing are the ones quietly holding everything together. If this story moved you, like and subscribe for more real stories of Filipino strength, dignity, and quiet heroism. Which part hit you hardest? Tell us in the comments below.